In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court has struck down former President Trump's sweeping tariff plan, reshaping the boundaries of presidential power. The ruling dismantles a core part of the America First economic strategy, signaling that the power to tax and regulate trade lies with Congress, not the president. For months, businesses and consumers faced uncertainty as tariffs threatened to raise prices and disrupt markets. The justices ruled that emergency powers are for genuine national security crises, not for overhauling trade policy. This decision immediately stabilized markets and reassured trading partners, restoring predictability to American commerce. Supporters of the ruling see it as a victory for constitutional checks and balances. Critics view it as a setback for aggressive trade reform. The future of American trade policy now rests firmly with Congress. To understand the Supreme Court's decision in this landmark case, we first need to explore the complex circumstances that led to the imposition of controversial tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. The story begins with growing concerns about America's economic position in the world, and the perceived threats posed by a widening trade deficit. These tariffs were not just about economics. They were framed as a matter of national security. The Trump administration argued that the influx of foreign metals threatened the very foundation of American industry, which in turn could weaken the country's ability to defend itself in times of crisis. In response, President Trump declared a national emergency, invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, a law originally designed to give presidents authority to respond swiftly to extraordinary foreign threats. This move allowed the administration to bypass traditional legislative processes and impose sweeping tariffs on a global scale. Historically, IEPA had been used for targeted sanctions, such as freezing assets or restricting trade with hostile nations, rather than for broad economic policy affecting entire industries and trading partners. By redefining the trade deficit as a national security crisis, the administration set a new precedent, effectively sidestepping Congress's traditional authority over trade policy and raising fundamental questions about the separation of powers. Critics from both political parties argued that this was a dangerous overreach, warning that it undermined the Constitution's clear assignment of trade authority to Congress and set a precedent for future presidents to declare emergencies for political gain. Supporters, however, praised the move as bold and necessary, claiming it was a decisive step to protect American jobs, industries, and national interests in an increasingly competitive global market. With the nation divided, the stage was set for a dramatic constitutional showdown. The Supreme Court was called upon to determine the true limits of executive power in times of perceived national emergency. Ultimately, the court's intervention would not only decide the fate of these tariffs, but also set a lasting precedent for how far a president can go when invoking emergency powers in the name of national security. The Supreme Court faced a pivotal question. Did IEPA allow the president to impose sweeping tariffs without Congress? The answer was a resounding no. The justices clarified that while the president has foreign policy powers, setting tariffs is Congress's responsibility. IEPA was meant for targeted, urgent threats, not for rewriting the nation's entire tariff system. The court drew a firm line: economic policy of this scale must go through Congress. This precedent ensures no future president can unilaterally impose broad tariffs under emergency powers. The ruling restores a vital check on executive authority. The court's ruling blocked two major tariffs: a universal 10% tariff on all imports and a 50% tariff on goods from India. These measures threatened to raise prices on everything from electronics to food and risked sparking a global trade war. The sudden announcements rattled markets and left businesses scrambling to adapt. The Supreme Court's decision brought immediate relief, averting price hikes and stabilizing the business environment. Companies regained the ability to plan, and consumers avoided a surge in everyday costs. The ruling prevented the economic disruption many experts feared. The debate over trade policy continues, but the immediate crisis has passed. The business community breathed a collective sigh of relief as the Supreme Court restored a sense of stability and predictability to U.S. trade policy. For months, uncertainty had rippled through boardrooms and trading floors, with executives and investors anxiously watching for signs of clarity. The ruling was seen as a crucial step in re-establishing confidence in the rules that govern international commerce, allowing businesses to plan for the future with greater certainty. Companies dependent on global supply chains had faced soaring costs, shipment delays, and a climate of unpredictability. Many firms had been forced to reconsider investments, delay hiring, or even pass higher prices on to consumers. The Supreme Court's decision offered hope that the era of sudden tariff hikes and policy reversals might be coming to an end, giving businesses a chance to rebuild and adapt. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, representing thousands of American businesses, praised the ruling for upholding the constitutional process and reinforcing the importance of checks and balances in economic decision-making. Business leaders argued that a stable legal framework is essential for growth, innovation, and America's competitiveness on the world stage. Lawmakers from both parties welcomed the decision, emphasizing that trade policy belongs in Congress, not the Oval Office. Many argued that this shift would ensure more transparency, debate, and accountability in shaping the nation's economic future. The ruling was hailed as a return to the constitutional balance of power. International allies who had grown wary of abrupt U.S. policy changes expressed hope that the ruling would prevent a damaging cycle of retaliatory tariffs and restore predictability to global trade. Foreign diplomats and trade partners signaled renewed willingness to engage in long-term agreements, seeing the decision as a sign that the U.S. would honor its commitments. However, supporters of the former president's agenda saw the decision as a setback for American manufacturing and a blow to efforts aimed at protecting domestic industries from foreign competition. They argued that the ruling could make it harder to respond quickly to unfair trade practices and global economic shifts. The ruling exposed deep divisions over how best to protect U.S. industries and jobs. Some called for new legislation to strengthen American competitiveness, while others warned against protectionism and urged a focus on innovation and open markets. The debate now shifts to Congress, where lawmakers face the challenge of crafting trade policies that balance economic growth, national security, and the interests of American workers. The future of U.S. trade policy will be shaped by these discussions in the months ahead. The Supreme Court's decision has set a new standard for how America approaches global commerce, marking a pivotal moment that will influence the nation's economic direction for years to come. For American families, the Supreme Court's ruling brings immediate relief. Prices on everyday goods from groceries to school supplies won't suddenly spike due to new tariffs. This means parents can better plan their budgets and families can continue to afford the essentials they rely on every day. The blocked tariffs would have raised costs on a wide range of items, from smartphones and electronics to shoes and clothing. For many households already feeling the pinch of inflation, these extra costs could have made a real difference, forcing tough choices at the checkout counter and putting more strain on monthly budgets. The decision also protects jobs in industries that depend on global trade. Farmers, factory workers, and manufacturers across the country rely on stable trade relationships to keep their businesses running and their employees working. Without the threat of sudden tariffs, these industries can plan for the future with greater confidence. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries had threatened American exports and jobs, putting entire communities at risk. By blocking these tariffs, the court's decision helps protect not just individual workers but the broader economy that depends on international trade. The ruling reinforces a fundamental principle of American democracy. Only Congress has the authority to impose broad taxes and tariffs. This preserves the separation of powers, ensuring that no single branch of government can act unilaterally on issues that affect millions. It sends a clear message: no president can bypass the democratic process with emergency declarations. The checks and balances built into the Constitution are there to protect the public from rash or unchecked decisions. Major changes to trade policy must now go through Congress, where elected representatives debate and decide. This process ensures transparency, public input, and accountability, giving citizens a voice in decisions that shape the economy. The decision strengthens the rule of law and reaffirms the vital role of Congress in shaping economic policy. It's a reminder that the nation's most important decisions are made through open debate and careful consideration. Going forward, America's approach to trade will be decided through open legislative debate, not by executive order. This ensures that the voices of the people, through their representatives, remain at the heart of economic policy. The Supreme Court's decision revealed deep divisions across the country. Former President Trump and his supporters condemned the ruling, calling it a betrayal of American workers and a blow to strong executive action. They argued that only bold, unilateral moves could fix decades of unfair trade deals. Critics of the tariffs, including business leaders and many lawmakers, celebrated the decision as a victory for constitutional order and economic stability. They praised the return to predictable trade policy and the reaffirmation of Congress's authority. International partners welcomed the ruling, hoping for more stable relations. The debate over trade and presidential power remains fierce, touching every corner of American society. The Supreme Court's ruling has become a flashpoint in the ongoing struggle over the nation's economic future. The Supreme Court's decision is a defining moment for American democracy, reaffirming the balance of power. Trade policy now returns to Congress, where it will be shaped through debate and compromise. Businesses and consumers gain stability, free from the threat of sudden, sweeping tariffs. Any future tariffs must be legislated, ensuring transparency and public input. The ruling clarifies who holds the power to shape America's economic future. The focus now shifts from the courtroom to the Capitol, where lawmakers must navigate the complexities of global trade. The decision doesn't end the debate, but it restores the constitutional process for finding answers.